Hello, it's Hande Begüm Bumin Doyduk. Welcome to Writing Professional Reports Part 4. In this part, we will be analyzing the second part of the writing reports, which is the writing part. In the writing section, the things we need to consider is first organizing. Organizing in terms of format and length. The format of the report could be pre-printed form used for fill-in blanks reports, short reports, managing routine information, and the needed information is filled in the report. Letters. Reports of fewer than 5 pages directed to outsiders, or memos, informal reports of fewer than 10 pages within an organization, or a manuscript, which is a more formal approach for writing reports. The length of the report depends on the purpose, the subject, and the audience of the report. Then in organizing, we also need to decide on the approach that is going to be used. There are two approaches. One of them is direct approach. When the reader is receptive and open-minded, we can use direct approach. In direct approach, we start with a summary of the findings. Conclusion and recommendation is then given. The later parts of the report provide complete findings and supporting analysis. In the indirect approach, state first the findings and discuss all supporting ideas, and then present the conclusion and the recommendation. The indirect approach helps to reduce the skepticism and resistance by the audience, by the reader, by saving the main idea or conclusion or recommendation for later in the report. Structuring. When we are structuring informational reports, it must be presented logically and accurately. Informational reports use topical organization based on importance, so you start from the most important option to state, then move on with the others. You can also structure it based on sequence. If a process is studied, then the steps should be followed in terms of timing. And third one is chronology. For analyzing a chain of events, chronology should be followed. Or in terms of category, for analyzing several aspects, focusing on one category at a time. For instance, if you're going to analyze the sales, the market share, the price, so you need to analyze one thing at a time and then move on with the other categories. When structuring analytical reports, you can structure by conclusion, by recommendation, or by logical arguments. Logical argument structuring is when the audience is unreceptive and when you need to use an indirect approach. So for logical arguments, focusing on conclusion or recommendation is the most forceful or efficient way for an analytical report, but it is not the best solution for every situation. When your purpose is to collaborate with your audience and solve a problem or persuade them to take a definite action, your structural approach must highlight logical arguments or focus the audience attention on what needs to be done. When you want your audience to concentrate on your ideas that make sense, then it's better to use logical organization. Analytical reports may be organized around logical arguments when the audience is, as we say, unreceptive, when we are using indirect approach. There are three approaches for logical arguments. Useful for convincing the skeptical readers. that your conclusions and recommendations are well-founded, in order to provide them that they are well-founded, you can use either 2 plus 2 is 4 approach, the scientific approach, or the yardstick approach. The 2 plus 2 equals 4 approach essentially convinces readers of your point of view by demonstrating that everything adds up. In this approach, you support every reason with the findings in your analysis part. The 2 plus 2 is 4 approach works well when you have many reasons for your point of view, but no single reason is overwhelming. Another approach is the scientific method. Reports based on scientific methods begin with a statement of the problem and a brief description of the hypothetical solution or a list of possible solutions. The body of the report discusses each alternative in return and offers evidence that will either confirm the alternative or rule it out. The final selection of the report summarizes the findings and indicates which solution or solutions are valid. The third approach is the yardstick approach. One way to reduce the confusion presented by having a lot of alternatives is to establish a yardstick for evaluating them. You begin by discussing the problem, as with the scientific method, but then you set up the conditions that might be met to solve the problem. With the yardstick approach, the report is organized around criteria. The solution is the alternative that best meets these criteria. For the yardstick approach to work, the readers, the audience should accept your criteria. The tables are useful in yardstick approach, but in using tables, you should be avoiding repetition and make options easier to compare. When we are organizing the visuals in reports are used for clarifying, simplifying, emphasizing, summarizing, reinforcing, attracting, impressing, and unifying ideas. Here we can see the different types of graphics used in reports and their purpose. If we want to present detailed, exact values, then it is the best way to do it is through tables. If we want to illustrate trends over time, bar or line charts are a useful graphic. To show frequency and distribution, pie charts are used. To compare one item with another, bar charts are again used. To show correlations, line, bar, or scattered charts are useful. To show geographic relationships, maps are used as visuals, and to illustrate the process, flowcharts are used in reports. When we look at the different types of visuals, here you can see line chart with markers, stacked line with markers, line chart for comparisons for different lines showing different things. So here we are seeing pie chart, column chart, histograms, graphs, area charts, scatter charts, bubble, donut, go charts, tree maps, stock analysis, financial analysis, Gantt charts, and tables. When using visuals, every visual should be clearly referred to by numbers in the text of your report. When describing data shown in a visual, emphasize the main point. It's not just a repetition of the data, but a more elaboration of what it is mentioned in the visual. Place the visual right beside or after the paragraph that explains it. In the next part, we will be seeing the composing part of writing a report. Thank you for your participation.